Hello everyone, it's attorney Tasha Heflin, your favorite attorney. Thanks for tuning in to Talks with Tasha. March 13, 2020, Breonna Taylor was shot at least 8 times in her home, which resulted in her death. At that point in time, no charges was brought against the police officers who were involved in the shooting of her death. Now, if you haven't watched the documentary that was shown on September the 4th, 2020, presented by the New York Times, I strongly suggest you do so. On September 23, 2020, Daniel Cameron, the Attorney General for Louisville, Kentucky, informed everyone that the grand jury had formally indicted Brett Hankinson on 3 counts of wanton endangerment in the first degree. Like many of you, I was surprised to learn that those charges had nothing to do with Breonna Taylor's death. Instead, those charges were brought against or for her neighbors in a neighboring apartment because her apartments were side by side. Many of you may be wondering, how can Hankinson be charged with wanton endangerment in the first degree as it pertains to her neighbors, but not be charged with that same crime as it pertains to Breonna Taylor? Well, I'm here to provide you with those answers or some facts that may help you come to a conclusion that may be reasonable for all. I will be providing you with the timeline of the events that led up to the death of Breonna Taylor. Now, I gathered this information from the New York Times, The Daily Show, and CNN. From the research that I've gathered, it is believed that police officers first had some indication or suspicion that Breonna may be involved in drug-related activity when Jamal Glover called her from the local jail on January 3rd, 2020. You all may be wondering, who is Jamal Glover? Well, Jamal Glover is an ex-boyfriend of Breonna Taylor. Although she was dating Kenneth Walker, Breonna Taylor still had some type of relationship or was still in contact with Mr. Glover at the time that they began this investigation, which then prompted the police department to look into Breonna Taylor. Allow me to provide you with some background information as it pertains to Mr. Glover. It is suspected that Mr. Glover had some drug-related charges in Louisiana. Not only did he have some drug-related charges in Louisiana, he also had 2 convictions in Louisville, Kentucky for drug-related charges as well. Furthermore, it can be proven that between 2017 and 2019, Breonna Taylor posted bond for Mr. Glover at least 3 times. Now, I know a lot of you may be saying in your head that does not mean that she is guilty of any crime, or that does not mean she should have died because of these events. Now, I'm just giving you a timeline that led up to the events that occurred on March 13th, 2020. Police officers are saying that they observed Jamarcus Glover come in and out of Breonna Taylor's home on sometime in February, and he was receiving packages that they suspect to be filled with some type of drugs. Now, they have no information that can be proven that the packages that he received had drugs inside them, because when he left the apartment, they failed to stop him and search him. Taking into consideration all the evidence I just told you about Glover's background, him having prior convictions for drug-related activity, him calling Breonna Taylor from the jail, and they having a conversation that does not involve drugs, but she does say that she is scared about his interaction with police officers. In addition, her bailing him out at least 3 times between 2017 and 2019, and the alleged assumption that Mr. Glover was receiving packages at her home that was allegedly supposed to have drugs involved. The police officers took this information and went and applied for a warrant, a no-knock warrant. This no-knock warrant, was signed by Judge Mary Shaw. It is alleged that she had to review at least 11 warrants before the detective or the people involved in the raid could go out and conduct the search. It is also alleged that on the early wee mornings of March 13th, the police officers were going to raid at least 5 homes, with Breonna Taylor home being the last residence to be raided. The interesting thing about this no-knock search warrant that later became a knock-and-announce search warrant is Sergeant Mattingly told reporters or investigators that after learning the news that they now had to knock and announce, that when he first knocked on the door of Breonna Taylor's home, he never did announce himself. Now, he later went on to say that the previous knocks after the fact, they did announce their presence. However, Kenneth is saying that they never knew, or no one ever announced themselves in their home. As a result, Kenneth Walker shot at police officers once they force entry into the home. Now this brings us to Hankerson. Hankerson then, upon the police officers being fired upon, leaves his post where you have the 3 officers. He leaves that area, runs outside of the doorway of the apartment to the side where Breonna's patio is, and then begins to blindly shoot inside the apartment. Now, Hankerson cannot see where people are located in the apartment. It's dark, and also the patio and the windows are covered with blinds. However, he still decides that he wants to shoot at least 10 times inside this house. As a result, 3 of those bullets went into the neighboring apartment where he's been charged with the 3 counts of wanton endangerment in the 1st degree. But he's not being charged with the disregard or reckless conduct or the wanton endangerment of Breonna Taylor's life, although his actions clearly shows you he did not care about Breonna, Kenneth, or the neighbors beside him. So this is where all the outrage comes from. This is where people are mad. This is why people are mad and people are protesting in Kentucky. I think it's important to know that the bullet that caused the death of Breonna Taylor was fired by Detective Miles Cosgrove. And it's important because the Daniel Cameron is stating that those officers, meaning Cosgrove and Manley, acted in self-defense. And the reason they acted in self-defense is because they're saying because Kenneth has admitted to firing a shot first, and then the police officer has a right to defend themselves. So although they may have been there illegally, which you would say, and the reason I'm saying illegally is because all the information that was provided in the search warrant was a lie, or it was based on assumptions, or it was information that was old and had not been validated. Typically, when you are performing a search warrant or you're going to execute one in someone's home, most judges want recent information. Recent information meaning within the last 24 hours or within the last 48 hours. The information that was provided to Judge Shaw had no credibility. They could not concretely prove that the packages Grove, Breonna's ex-boyfriend, picked up from her home was drugs. They had no evidence that she had a substantial amount of money in her home, because after the incident, they said they searched the home and they didn't find any money and they didn't find any drugs. Although the information that the police provided to the judge was wrong and it had not been proven, it was not factual and they had no way of proving it, the officers did have a legal reason to be there because the judge had signed the search warrant, giving them permission to execute the search warrant. The issue becomes none of the officers were arrested for Breonna's murder. That's why people are so outraged. But what I need for you guys to understand is they could not prove, because of the self-defense, they cannot prove that Sergeant Mattingly and Detective Cosgrove acted illegally. Now, I'm mad. I'm just as mad as you, and I want to see justice. I do want to see justice, but the thing is, if the Attorney General charged Mattingly and Cosgrove with offenses that they cannot prove, we will still possibly have the same outcome that we're having now. Outrage. And I know that people want answers. I want answers, but I want the DA or the Attorney General not to give me answers, but to give me justice. So this goes back to the video that I posted a couple of weeks ago or last week about the $12 million settlement. Yes, the family received the $12 million settlement and they should have gotten more. The reason why I've always supported the family receiving this $12 million settlement is because I recognize as a public defender, as a former police officer, that sometimes we don't receive justice. And in this case, we are not receiving justice. Although Hankerson has been charged, he's being charged with 3 counts that doesn't even involve Breonna Taylor. And the defense that they're able to use because of Kentucky law states that he was able to use self-defense. Now, at the very least, do I think they could have maybe possibly indicted him on wanton endangerment of Breonna Taylor as well? Yes, because they have evidence where he was shooting blindly into a home that he could not see. So if he can shoot blindly into a home that he cannot see and be charged with 3 counts because of a neighboring apartment, why couldn't that be the case as it pertains to Breonna? She was in her home sleep. You went and got a warrant where you lied in the warrant, or you gave information that you could not concretely confirm. So you should have at least tried to indict him for her as well. And I think the public may have some sympathy, may be able to understand a little better. However, the public is outraged because Breonna Taylor is not getting justice. And again, like I've always stated, $12 million is not enough for human life. And it's my understanding that this could be or is the largest settlement received by a family as it pertains to a black woman. And that's just sad. Since the death of Breonna Taylor, the Louisville, Kentucky Police Department has made some adjustments. The old police chief has now resigned and been replaced by a new police chief as interim, who is an African American female. In July of 2020, they passed a law that bans no-knock warrants, and it's now called Breonnas Law. These are just small things that has taken place since the death of Breonna. If you've listened to this video in its entirety, then you understand that justice does not look the same to each individual. What one individual may consider to be justice may look totally different to the next individual. Justice is not always equal. It is not always fair. It is not always right. And sometimes it's not even justice. Many of you do not know, but Breonna Taylor loves scrapbooking in her free time. She made an entry in 2011 that I would like to share with you. Graduating this year on time is so important to me because I'll be the first in my family to accomplish this. My mother wasn't able to finish high school on time and get her diploma, so I know how much me getting mine means to her. To have my entire family expecting me to graduate and set a good example for the younger ones is one of the biggest responsibilities I've ever had. But I refuse to let anyone down, regardless of the amount of pressure I have on my shoulders. I want to be the one who finally breaks the cycle of my family's educational history. I want to be the one to finally make a difference. I want to be the one that everybody can look up to with smiles on their faces, telling me how proud of me they are. The one that can finally say, "You did it too." I want that to be me. I thank you for listening to Talks with Tasha, and until next time, enjoy your day.